Hi everyone, I'm Justin Paperny with White Collar Advice, and I'm really pleased to welcome my good friend and client Steve and Lamont to the program. Hi, Steve.
Hello there, Justin.
Steve, so this is we've been on a road together for a while, and it gets a little emotional because you are surrendering to the federal prison camp in Tucson on Monday. So I'm grateful you taking some time to share some insights with us, and I kind of want to go through some rapid fire questions. And the goal is to educate defendants watching this, their families who might be in a position that you're in right now. So let's jump right in with, you're going in on Monday for 27 months. How do you feel?
I'm excited a little bit. Today is Friday, so I've only got the weekend. I've been super busy this week, just tying up loose ends and spending time with the kids. Looking forward to some family time on Sunday, and then the drive down, which is about 2.5 hours.
Now, some people are surprised when they hear a little excited to go in, but I can relate to that, right? Because the stress that accompanies this process, or the unknown, it's very hard. So to a degree, it's nice to go in because you begin to get credit for it. You'll get credit for an actual day in prison, though you've already been in prison in many ways. So let's look back over the last year. For those watching, Steve retained me in February of 2016, and we've been very close ever since. So what are some lessons over the last year as you were dealing with your case, and some advice for defendants who who are going through a similar situation?
Well, one thing for sure is you have to enjoy your life. We all have family. We've all had births and deaths and all different types of things occur to us. And one of the things that men like myself that are in the business world, that are busy, that are attempting to be successful, is that we're busy and we're going full speed ahead, and we just take a lot of things for granted. And this process has enlightened me. It's taught me to slow down a little bit, enjoy making my son breakfast in the morning, and seeing him come home from school, and having a nice conversation with my wife over the phone, and my interaction with my friends and young people that I interact with, that I mentor or coach, is to really enjoy those moments. And a lot of that has to do with having some clarity. And once this thing hits you and it takes over your life, because it does take over your life.
Yep.
You need some clarity, and you need people around you that you can communicate to. I mean, at the end of the day, my responsibility is to be as strong as I possibly can, so that my family will be strong and they'll be prepared. But that doesn't mean that I don't have insecure moments and concerns and fears. But you need people to be able to talk to somebody about, to talk about those things with. And that's kind of where you came in. You put my mind at ease, and prepared me for the process, and got me to focus on the actual process, not just obsess about going to prison and losing my freedom. It was more about the actual process.
Yeah.
Got me in touch with a lot of feelings and a lot of different people, and put me in a good spot.
Well, when I hear that, I remember our first phone call. Steve called me on a Sunday, and Steve has spoken with me at a University of San Diego, and he told a student, said, "Well, how did you meet Justin? What was that like?" And Steve had called me on a Sunday, left a message, didn't think I'd call him back on a Sunday, but I did, and we just sort of hit it off from the beginning. But from the first few minutes, Steve, I think, knew that someday he'd go to prison. He still got a lower than guideline sentence at 27 months. It could have been worse. But he was immediately asking questions about prison, like, what is the job like, and how do I do this, and how do I connect with my kids? And I'm like, bud, you haven't pled guilty yet. You haven't been indicted. Let's focus on what you can do to get the best possible sentence and the most favorable institution closest to your home. So talk a little bit about, I guess, where you were when you reached out to me, and did you underestimate how much you could do to prepare for sentencing?
Right. Well, one thing that I've been fortunate to do, having gone through a lot of adversity in my life, business-wise, personally, whatever, is I've learned to process things and take them for what they are. So one of the things my attorney always said to me every time I met with him, he's like, "Why are you always in a good mood?"
Yeah.
That's something you can control. And it's not his fault. It's not the district attorney's fault or the FBI agents or whatever, whoever worked on your case. It's not their fault. It's got laid in their lap and they're doing their job.
Steve, let's transition to the relationship with your lawyer. You had an excellent relationship with your lawyer. I like to think that I helped. But you had a very good relationship with your lawyer, which helped your end game. So talk about why you think your relationship was so positive, and some advice you have for defendants who are looking to hire a lawyer, or just from your experience and how well you worked with your lawyer.
Well, one of the things, my attorney was older than me. He's in his 60s, and that gave me some comfort. I figured, wealth of experience. One of the things he told me, he had a good working relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I knew I wasn't going to go to court. So his relationship with them was going to be vital. So that put me at ease. Mm-hmm. And at first I was a little uncomfortable because he was in kind of an office that wasn't that nice, but over the years of dealing with him, I realized it was strategically paced. It was in walking distance to the court, walking distance to hotels, things like that. So I was a little worried at first because I was like, wow, shouldn't I be, for what this is going to cost me, doesn't this person need to have a nice, pretty building to work out of? I realized quickly that he was a good man, number one, and he made me feel at ease. And also, if I ever kind of questioned what was going on, he set me straight. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for guys that have been self-employed or been in control of their own destiny, work-related stuff, is they get somebody that is a little above them in regards to maturity and controlling the room, because we're so used to being in control mm-hmm. and making decisions. It's important. This is something we don't know. So for us to do that, it's wrong. And we need, and you put yourself at risk. And if you don't respect your attorney, then there's going to be conflict. And also, if you don't take ownership of what you did, mm-hmm. and you don't think any of these things should be happening to you, which most of us don't feel that any of these things should be happening to us, mm-hmm. it's kind of hard to make progress.
Well, you worked openly with your lawyer. That was essential. We don't want to flush money down the toilet. And whether you're paying a lawyer hourly or inclusively, you want to use their time wisely. And the more they believe you, the more they're going to be in a position to sell you. And that's what really great lawyers do. They sell to the government, the judge, the probation officer. They help sell why you're worthy of the best sentence. And I'll note, Steve had some very flattering, or I shouldn't say flattering, you had some excellent language from your pre-sentence interview from the probation officer that was, I think, more impressive than anything that you could have written or your lawyer could have said, because it came from the government, why you're worthy of the lower end, your background, mitigating factors. I mean, that was the home run. So let's quickly talk about the pre-sentence interview. The first time we spoke, as we mentioned, you had more questions about prison. I said, we need to focus on first things first, that pre-sentence interview. You had an awesome pre-sentence interview. Talk a little bit about our preparations and the comfort that you had in knowing how that interview would impact your end game.
Right. An attorney when you ask him what the process is, you're listening, but you're not hearing.
Yeah.
He's just telling you all the different steps. And, there's a pre-sentencing interview. They just, something they do prior to you pleading.
Just show up and answer some questions, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But he had seen me work in a room before. He had seen me talk to the U.S. Attorney's Office. So he knew I was going to be good in an interview or good with somebody, because mm-hmm. I'm respectful and
you're honest.
I'm honest, and I smile on my face. So I was nervous going into that, because you had let me know how important that was, mm-hmm. because that's really what the judge sees in you, that kind of paints the picture mm-hmm. of who you are, what you're all about, what you've done in your life. From a legal standpoint, it's not all the nice character reference letters that you gather, all mm-hmm. the nice things people say about you. This is factual stuff. And he was very clear with me in the pre-sentencing interview that, he's not there to help me, he's not there to hurt me, he's there just to stick to the facts. Mm-hmm. And I just had a positive, attitude when I was in that meeting. And because we had prepared for it enough, I was I felt super prepared, but I felt amped up. I felt like I was talking in front of a room of 200 salespeople, like I've done before.
Yeah.
And this is me and this guy, and my attorney, and it went well. He let me know he was going to reach out to my family members, and of course they were nervous, about that as well. But my wife was prepared, and we were actually driving back from San Diego when he had called her, and was asking questions, and I had a really good feel for what he was going to ask her based on mine and his interaction. I think because I had a positive attitude, he gave me a little bit more information than he normally would give somebody in my situation.
So for those watching, Steve did a lot of things to position himself for the best outcome. He's been a coach in his community for a long time. He committed to paying back a little bit of money towards the restitution. He worked openly with his lawyer. He was very transparent in his financials. He did some public speaking with me. Like I said, you visited me at University of San Diego, maybe USC too, but I forget. But I know for sure University of San Diego, you spoke to the students and they appreciated it, and you shared your cautionary tale. So you're, giving back, expecting, nothing in return like money or anything. You're just, I want to tell you how I made a couple of bad decisions and how it's going to separate me from my wife and my kids, and I want you to do better, right? An open story like that, it went a long way, your character reference letters and your narrative. So Steve mitigated. He didn't say, hey, Justin, there's nothing I can do to prepare, whatever the judge does. A lot of cliches. It is what it is, man. He said, look, I don't know what's going to happen. I want to do all I can to prepare to get the best outcome. And I think that's part of the reason he got a lower than guideline sentence. And he got the prison of his choosing. So let's transition as we wrap up to the next couple of days. For those watching, what's the hardest part of this experience as you're getting ready to surrender in the next 72 hours? Reflect on the hardest part for all of us watching.
It'll be the time away from my family and making sure that they're okay. I'm going to be okay. I can live in a one-bedroom apartment or a studio, and I'd be fine. I'm a guy. Give me the ball game and something to do, and I'm good. But when you have the responsibility of being a husband and a father, and you're not able to physically be there, I've spent years preparing for this, and changed the way I parented, changed the way I interacted with my children and my wife, and so that they could be prepared. So I think the biggest thing for me is, when I'm gone, and when that realization hits them that I'm gone, because it has not hit them now, because we talk openly about this, we make jokes about it, we're prepared, but there is going to be that one time when one of my kids would have come to me because something important's happened, and I'm not going to physically be there to be able to help them. So that's my biggest concern is that right there, making sure that my wife doesn't lose her mind with the extra responsibility that will be placed upon her. Make sure my 21-year-old who's moved back in the house to help with the 16 and the 12 doesn't lose his mind as well, because of the meaningless babbling conversations that you tend to have with a 12-year-old.
I don't know yet. Someday, my daughter's nearly 3, but I'll get there. I totally get it. Lastly, you told, you were very transparent with your children that Daddy's going to jail. And when did you tell them? I mean, I know the answer, but I want our viewers to know. Did you wait until you were sentenced, before sentencing, and how did you respond, and how did they respond to, wow, our father's going to federal prison? Like, my God. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, there were stages. My daughter, who's 25, worked at the company that was under investigation, so she knew before anyone.
Yeah. I think they notified her first to get to you.
I have been telling my wife since 2012 that there's a high probability that this thing is going to land on me.
Yeah.
And it's been, but it's just weird because I've always been pretty much tried to stay positive and have moved on with my life. Nobody ever really believed that this day was going to come because I wasn't showing traditional behaviors of somebody that was going to be incarcerated. I wasn't showing the fear and the anxiety and the stress and the anger. I was staying positive, and So anyhow, my son, who's 21, that's here in the house. I told him years ago that, hey, this is going to go down one day. Pretty much let my 16-year-old know. At the time he was probably 14 or 15, that, hey, I'm dealing with some stuff that might land on my plate. And I remember in February, about the time that I called you, I had very pointed conversations with my 25, 24, 21, and 16-year-old, and said, hey, this is definitely happening. Now, they were all a couple years, a year or so younger, but I said, hey, I'm going in, and it's going to take a year or so, for this to play out, but I'm definitely going in. I held off on my 12-year-old because there were some things that made us think that I had a shot at only getting like 8 months.
Yeah.
That's a much easier conversation to have with a 12-year-old. Hey, I'm going to be gone for a couple months. Heck, I could have even lied and said I went out of town on business, So we waited. But over Christmas break, this past Christmas break, I had not been sentenced. But I started to get it when I started getting an idea that this wasn't going to go well for me. I had a business that I did after the business I got in trouble for, that I shut down, and there was some negative things associated with that. It's kind of, and I knew that was going to hurt me. I had done some stupid things in the 90s that was on the pre-sentencing report that the judge was going to see. So the reality was, my attorney was like, wow, because he knew what his argument was going to be. Hey, these guys did the same thing Steve did. They got 8 months. That's what he gets. But when he told me that's not going to be his argument, I realized it was going to be more like 2 years. So that's when I sat my 12-year-old down, and I said, hey, I need to talk to you, And so his was, I waited. He was the last one I had told. Everybody else in my life I had told a lot sooner, because I just thought it'd be easier, to be able to ask questions, or just to have them start to also get in the right mindset and become a little bit more responsible, also realize, and honestly, to enjoy their time with me more. Than they, stuff they just didn't take for granted. Last thing I wanted to do was go in and then go, well, gosh, I wish I knew about this. I would have actually went to you when you asked, stuff like that.
So when so this is, as a communicator and speaker, it is the hard part of the job for me, because with many of my clients, we're not just clients, we're very good friends. We text, we talk personally, professionally, and we've been through a lot together. So I'm going to miss you. Certainly, we're going to connect through Core Links. I'll be awaiting that invitation that will probably arrive in my spam box, so I'll be on the lookout for it. So we'll be communicating through email. Share quickly, last piece of advice, a takeaway for a defendant watching this as you're about to cross over into prison boundaries, something motivational or inspirational or just incredibly honest, someone who's watching this who is going down a similar road, they're just a little bit behind you.
Yes. Well, one thing, it's all about preparation, and one thing is you've got to envision this day. The day I have to envision Monday. I've envisioned it many times. The drive down, the hug from my wife, and the walking into a facility that I've never been in before, knowing I'm going to live there with a bunch of strangers. You have to envision that. You have to kind of take ownership of that and know that that's the end result of this process. So from there, it's, well, how do I make sure that my family's going to be okay, or the people that love me are going to be okay, and this isn't going to affect them in a negative way. And if you focus on those kind of things, everything kind of just takes care of itself, everybody that I've come in contact with, they want to think that this is going to be a lot worse than what I think it's going to be, but because that's what I've chosen. Now, it is difficult. A lot of guys facing my situation, and some of the things I faced that weren't fair. Those things do happen. I'm not saying we're all 100% guilty of everything that they're saying. There are some things that occur to you that aren't fair through this process. But if you focus on that, then you're missing out on life. You're missing out on the potential to be happy, to be able to prepare your family properly. So that's it. You got to embrace it. I treat this is something I get to do, that a lot of people don't. It's an experience. It's not the end of the world. It's going to make me hopefully a happier, stronger person and a more appreciative person of the things around me.
Well, I'll close with, so I was meeting with a new client earlier this week. His name is Jonathan Schwartz, who is a business manager out here in Los Angeles. And he said, tell me something specific that a client has said to you that has really made your day. And I immediately thought of you because on one of our first calls, you said, you know what, Justin, whatever prison sentence I get, I don't want this time before I go in to be prison. I'm not in prison. I'm with my family. And I'll serve the time, but I'm not going to serve it now. And I convey that message to all of you watching, and I conveyed it to Jonathan, who asked me, because you did that incredibly well, much better than me. The 3.5 years before I went in, I was a basket case. I was a wreck. It was embarrassing. I was drinking. I was smoking. I was selfish. I was in denial.
You're a young man.
Yeah, I was younger. I was 32, but I never dealt with any adversity in my life. I was like a coddled young man. I couldn't take a hit. So granted, you were older, you had more life experience, but you haven't been in prison this last year, and I admire that. And that's a lesson for everyone watching. It's a lesson for those of you who are embroiled in the criminal justice system, who someday may go to prison. You are not in prison today. Go out with your wife. Spend time with your children. Coach as Steve did. Speak in the community. It was so inspiring to me, and to know that I played you don't have to play up any more than I did, to know that I played a small role in that. And then I got paid to do it is a privilege and a treat for me. So thank you for setting the example, and it's a story I will continue to share. And I'll miss you very much, bud, and I'll look forward to connecting with you on the other side.
All right.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you.